cloud. And then we have the AI companion on, I believe. Yes. So then I can just make you host and it's already go into my cloud.
Okay, awesome.
And I'll just make you host. How are you? We just talked yesterday.
Good, good. We're doing good, chugging right along. Just looking for, to finish the raise with Braybrook, looking for that little bit of extra money. As part of the raise, like 2.7, like Andy said, we thought we had someone who was going to come in with the rest of it, and then he decided his financial advisor told him, that to just leave his money sitting in his 401k that it was going to earn like 13% this year. So based on what he knew. So I don't know, but I mean, if that's true, then my 401k is going to do phenomenal this year. But
I think it just depends on what you have it invested in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. The sale of a property is where a lot of money is made, so it's like, yeah, you might not make it this year, but it'll come
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. So
Mm-hmm. So you can invest your 401k and an SDIRA in like promissory notes, right? Do like promissory notes with both of those?
it has to be the way I understand it is that it has to be in a self-directed IRA to do that. You could pull a loan from the 401k. You can take a $50,000 loan if
Mm-hmm.
you're a custodian and your company allows it, and you could promissory that out.
Okay. Okay. What about if you're retired and you're not working, right? So like your 401k, like, you could draw on it anytime then.
I don't know. I only know what I've experienced so far, if that makes sense. I've never asked those kinds of questions.
Just
But
wondering.
yeah.
Because I've asked.
The custodians are always there to answer questions. That's the big take home that we'll get into today.
Yeah.
So why don't we go ahead and let everybody in?
Oh yeah. Okay.
So we are recording. My VA
Oops.
will,
Admit, I'm letting in.
hey everybody, welcome. Welcome to the webinar on how to invest your retirement money into real estate. Thanks for joining. We're just going to give it a few minutes for people to come on in. I'm hoping that we'll have time for questions at the end. So we'll just do, I'll be presenting and then just jot your questions down and we'll get to them at the end of we'll do the Q&A all together at the end. And we'll just let a few more people join us. Thanks for coming. And then as always, if there's questions after after this is all over and we're not online anymore, feel free to reach out to me. I have no problem answering the questions for what I know. And I think with that, we'll just go ahead and get started. So for those of you who don't know me personally, my name is Liz Carlin. I'm an entrepreneur. My husband and I have been in business for about 12 years. We own 2 laundromats, a pickup and delivery laundry company. I've been investing in real estate. I'm at 523 doors. And I'm also a mindset coach for real estate professionals, because the one thing that I've seen in my real estate career is that we all start to get hung up when we're hitting our ceilings of what we're used to, what we believe is possible. And everything is possible. We just have to be having the right mindset to do that. So even when it comes to investing your retirement into real estate, there's a mindset piece behind that too. So pay attention to what your body is telling you, what thoughts that you're having, because those are where you've got mindset issues that you'll want to shift so that you can continue moving forward on things. So me personally, I have deployed over $1 million in retirement money into self-directed IRA accounts and various activity. Most of it has been real estate, but I have invested in a couple of businesses. And I've also done some private lending with my retirement funds. So we're going to talk a little bit about all of that. But when I first got started, I was still working my 9-to-5 job, and I started investing a small amount of my IRA and my Roth that was outside of my company, where I had my 401k. So I was that money that was not affiliated with my job is what I started with. And I knew that I was on the path to make a change and step out of working in corporate America. And that's when I just really started trying to learn and understand how do you do this? Because it's complicated. I didn't even know it was a thing until I was in the academy that I joined to learn how to do the investing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. So what I've learned is that you have to, do some basic understanding of what's going on. And you need to, just really make sure that you are um, following all the rules. And it's not super scary once you get started because you're building kind of a team. You have your custodian, and you have your bank, and you have people that you can talk to. You've got your CPA and your attorney. All of that is what helps like make it work. But if you're in it to do it, it is a phenomenal way to just really jump in. But I'm here today to really help you guys kind of figure out how to get started. And I am not a financial planner. I am not an attorney. I am not a CPA. I am just somebody who has worked really hard over the last few years to figure out how to deploy this money and not get myself into trouble. So I'm going to just share my stuff, but I do highly recommend, and I will be talking about it. I slowed down my process because I didn't have the right CPA for a while. So I was just really conservative on what I did because I didn't know what the tax implications were going to be because I didn't have my team completely built out. So you can be very conservative in how you do things so that you can still make forward progress and not break the rules and not worry about the taxes. So we're going to kind of talk all about this kind of stuff. And again, if there is any questions, we'll just hold the questions till the end. So this training is aimed at both investors, aspiring investors, and even capital raisers, because if you're a capital raiser and you know people have this money, but you know they don't know how to tap into it, you can use what we're going to talk about today to help guide them through the process so that they can just get started. The big thing if you're a capital raiser is that you have to make sure this money is not liquid immediately if it's still in the traditional 401ks and SDIRA. Before it's in the SDIRA, it's locked up and it can't be moved just to deploy into a deal. So you want to be aware as a capital raiser of what some of those hurdles are for your potential investors so that you can help guide them through the process. So the big thing here is I just want you guys to really have a positive mindset around this. This is just to help you get started. And if there are questions, we will have time either here or afterwards to help get your questions answered so that you can get started. So I am not here to teach you about real estate investing or underwriting. I'm expecting that you understand that already. And if you don't, make sure you're partnered with somebody who does. But I want to share my journey of investing my retirement funds so that I can shift your belief out of it's too hard to I am ready to take this opportunity so I can take action. So the first way that I'm gonna go over the different ways of the structures of what the different options are of how you can access this money. The first way, I never did it in real estate, but I definitely did it when I was still working in corporate America, where you can actually take a loan against your 401k. So that's where my husband and I wanted to do some work on the house. We borrowed $20,000 from that account and I had to pay it back. And it was a great way of being able to access some money. The interesting thing is that it's structured like a bank loan. So we took the $20,000 out, and the way the government requires that you structure these things, I also had to pay myself interest back. So it was still money that I wasn't money lost. I was just paying back into the interest. So if you want to invest your money, you want to pull the $50,000 out and invest it in a deal, just recognize that you're going to have to make a payment on that. And so you want to make sure, when is the deal going to start paying you? And you want to make sure that you have the money to make because you're making an extra payment, that small amount of interest. So it's not money lost, you're just paying yourself. So it's not traditional interest that's just going to the bank, but it has to be structured like a bank loan. So that's why they do it. So the pros to this is that you can access the money really quickly. There's no early withdrawal penalty from the tax perspective of your 401k money, and you are paying that interest back to yourself. So it's not like you're paying this 7% interest to a bank that it just disappears. The cons are that it has to be repaid within 5 years, or you have to understand how your company 401k is set up. Some require that you must pay it immediately when you leave your job. So if you're considering making a change and you don't want to be stuck having to pay all of that back, you just really need to understand, go call your custodian and ask the questions. They'll answer you. And then when you pull that 50,000 out, you are not growing that in your portfolio any longer. You're growing it with real estate. So you wouldn't be able to make whatever returns you're making in the 401k. It would be shifted over to the real estate. And a lot of times these are limited. The last I checked on it, it was $50,000 was the maximum. So some deals require you need $100,000 to go into, so it might not be enough money. So just so you know that, part of that money is yours to exercise immediately. So that's a big shift. A lot of us feel like it's there, set it and forget it, and I'll retire with the money down the road, and that's when I'll be able to access it. But you actually can access some of that immediately. The second way, which is where I've spent most of my time in real estate doing this, is creating what's called a self-directed IRA. This is where you're taking control over the retirement funds and you're moving them from the traditional Charles Schwab, bigger, the big companies, the T. Rowe Prices, those big companies that we all have heard the names of, and you got to go find the other companies that handle self-directed IRAs. So sometimes we're not moving forward in this stuff because we just don't know where to start. And I want you guys to know there is resources available. I'm happy to provide you some names of companies to get started with, but we got to get over that hurdle. So I want to break this down for you so that you guys can get started like as quickly as you want. Another just little aha piece of information. These big companies, these big, huge companies, they don't want to let your, $500 million, however much money is in there. They don't want that money to leave their building. They want to make the money on your money. They want to house your money. And shockingly, it actually takes a tremendous amount of time and patience and follow-up to get them to move your money to this new account. So if you want to go in this direction, I highly recommend starting to move at least a portion of your money so that you can start exercising it and working with it. You don't have to move everything, but I'll never forget, this is like my first moment. I'm like, okay, I have $200,000 in my 401k and I heard I can deploy it. So I was all excited about this 30-unit deal when I first joined the academy from one of the partners or one of the groups, and I wanted to partner with them. I'm like, yeah, I have $100,000 ready to go. Like, I want to invest it, but I didn't realize it wasn't ready to go. And they didn't ask me the right questions, so they didn't realize it was ready to go. And I was not able to invest in their deal because the timing to move this money and the window that they had that they needed to close didn't match up. And I can tell you, it did not start me off on the right foot with these investors. So you got to pay attention to what is going on. So my first time I was doing this, I was moving about $200,000 from 6 different accounts. So I had self-directed, I had traditional IRA money, and I had Roth money, and it was spread across 3 different companies. So it was technically 6 accounts. So I had to consolidate all of this into 2 new accounts in the self-directed IRA. And I swear it took me nearly 3 months. That it should not be that way. This is my money, not their money, but that's just the process. It takes forever. You have to fill out certain paperwork, and they managed to misplace the paperwork. It doesn't seem to be digital that you just fill it out and hit send. You have to print everything up, sign it, send it back. Hopefully the process has gotten easier, but I have not found that the banks, they don't want to give up their money. So they make it kind of difficult. So that is a big thing to pay attention to. So what I'm seeing a lot of my fellow investors doing is like they might have a big retirement, but maybe they work to just get $100,000 or $200,000 moved over so that they can work and exercise that and have something to work with. And then when they're ready to move more, they can move more down the road. It does take time to find the right kinds of deals because we'll talk about the taxes and whatnot down the road. So if you want to take a couple notes, the 3 companies that I'm aware of that handle self-directed IRAs, I personally use Directed IRA. There's also the IRA Club and UDirect. Those were I actually never talked to IRA Club. There was another one that I spoke to. Their fees were so high that I wasn't even interested, and I don't recall the name. But I just call them and talk to their salespeople and really find out what kind of services you're going to get on the back end and find out what the fees are. Verify, because things can change too. So you need to get your money moved. That's the first step from the T. Rowe Price, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, the big companies that we've all heard of. You've got to get them moved into a self-directed IRA, which you have to have a special custodian. So those are the 3 that I'm aware of. And then I just recently heard from Jennifer, who's on the call today, that there are some local credit unions that offer that as well. But you in order to do this according to all of the laws and avoid any kind of late or tax implications or penalties for taking money out, you want to make sure that you do that piece properly. So once you have your money moved to the self-directed IRA, whichever custodian you choose, they should have an investment person on their staff that's on the back end, not the salesperson, but an investment person. If you can talk to them, I don't know if the salespeople will let you, but what I know now is those people are worth their weight in gold. So that every single deal, at least it used to when I first got started, every single deal that I came across that I was interested in, I sent it over to them to review because I didn't know, is this good? Is this bad? Is this okay? And that's how I learned the do's and the don'ts. Obviously, I had my piece of paper from the attorney from my LLC, but that's just a piece of paper and like the proofs in the pudding kind of thing. So I wanted to talk with the investment advisor. So if you can talk with the investment advisor before you join their company, I think that would be a great thing to do. I didn't do that personally, but I found that that Directed IRA had a really good investment advisor, and I feel that it helped keep me safe. So that's a really, really great thing. So when your money is in the self-directed IRA, there's 2 ways to manage that money. One is what's called a custodian controlled situation or a checkbook IRA. So I'm going to just break down the difference between the 2 of those. First, the custodian controlled. What it means is they're in charge of your money. So not only are they going to provide you the investment guidance, but that same person, he's going to sign all the documents. He's going to read everything. He's going to go through the 200-page syndication document if you decide to go with the syndication. And they're going to be very involved in the process of getting you into a deal. So the positive part of that is that there's no other setup other than getting your account going. And you should have an investment advisor that is helpful and wonderful that helps you. You don't have to manage the LLC. And it's really great if you want to be completely passive. But the cons are that every transaction that you go through requires them to review it and approve it. So I'm a general partner on a deal outside of St. Louis. It's a 48-unit deal. And a good colleague of mine that I've known for years, he had $150,000 he wanted to put into the deal from his self-directed IRA money. And so he's like, yeah, I'm in. He was in on day 1. And he sent all the paperwork over. Like as soon as we had everything, we sent everything over. His money was the last to hit the day before we closed because he was a custodian controlled self-directed IRA. And at the end of that process, he was like, now I know why people do the checkbook IRAs because it took him nearly 3 months to get this money wired over. And so that's sure it's passive investing, but it's very active on having to manage this process of getting the money over. And it was really stressful for him because he knew he was kind of holding things up a little bit and he wanted to get his money into the deal. And that's another thing too. Sometimes deals will fund very quickly. I've missed out on a couple of deals I was really interested in because I have my due diligence process. And I'm not going to just sign off on, yeah, I want in on this deal because I like you. You showed me a great investment, presentation and your slide deck looks great, but I got to go do my due diligence to make sure your rents are right and all that kind of stuff. And I've lost out on deals just because other people were more confident in the deal than I was, and it wasn't even due to the custodian holding onto my money. It was I couldn't personally move fast enough, so I've missed out. So when you're dealing with a custodian controlled situation, if it takes 3 months and it's a really hot deal that you want in on and they can't get the money wired over there fast enough, you could lose out on deals. So that's where I prefer the checkbook controlled self-directed IRA. And this is where you actually have to go through the time and money to create an LLC. So now it's its own business, and it's like you have a little self-directed IRA business. And for me, I have 2 of them because of the way I moved my money at 2 different times, and the structure for the second time didn't work. So I created a second one. So I have 2 LLCs. So I have to pay the attorney to create the LLC, to have the operating agreement. You have to do tax returns for that LLC. It is a little bit more work, but I get to write the checks and wire the money without having to go through their rigmarole and all of their, if you want to call it, red tape to release the funds. So the key to this one is you have to find a bank that handles self-directed IRAs. Because again, this is all following tax law, and a standard Chase bank account isn't going to be able to handle my self-directed IRA checkbook information. So the 2 companies that I was referred to from the 2 banks that I was referred to from my attorney is Solera Bank and Titan Bank. And I picked Solera at the time because Titan and Solera were pretty neck and neck on their fees and pretty neck and neck on their technology. But the Solera had a few more things that seemed that they would be a little bit easier, so I went with them. And now I've come to find out through the collective knowledge of my investor club, the people that I invest with, that Titan has way lower fees now. So I'm about to move all my money over to Titan because what's the number one thing I do in my self-directed IRA? I send and receive wires. So I don't want to have extra expenses. So there may be other banks. I'm not aware of them. It may be that the credit unions can handle that kind of stuff as well. But ask around and get the information so that you can get your money into the checkbook IRA. So the pros of the checkbook IRA is that I have full control over the investments. I don't need the custodian approval. We'll talk about why that's a con in a minute. Faster transactions, and there's less fees other than those wire fees. The cons are that I now have more responsibility. I have to manage the LLC. I have to do annual minutes. I have to do tax returns. I got to, it's another thing. And the risk when it comes to Assured, the custodian doesn't need their approval, and it means I am open to making a mistake. And so I could have a tax implication from that if I make a mistake. So the big key on the checkbook IRA, when you are able to get yourself into trouble, is to have a team. You want to have your attorney, you want to have your CPA, and you want to have your investor person at the custodian all be involved in making these decisions. And eventually your confidence will build. There are certain deals that come by that I already know approximately how it's going to pan out because I've been through another deal that was very similar to this. So I hit up my custodian for more information, and the attorneys and my CPA when I'm not really sure there's something new or different about the deal structure or the way the payout is or the fees look different. Like if something looks different than what I've done before is when I reach out. So you will gain confidence with the more deals that you do. But you have to the biggest risk with checkbook IRAs is that you have nobody watching over your shoulder. So you have to go ask for the help. So you make sure that you stay engaged with them. Okay. Another way that you can do, the other option that you really have is that, and I've heard people doing this too, is that you can just pull the money out, take the tax hit, and now you have cash on your hands to work on it. So now if I've taken that $1 million, maybe I've taken $100,000 penalty, whatever that is, you want to check on what those penalties are. But you have full control over the money, but you also don't have the tax-free growth that some of these IRAs allow. So you have to kind of weigh the pros and cons of that. But some people just prefer that I'll take the tax hit now and have full control over my money. The IRS isn't involved anymore from the perspective of I could maybe get in trouble. All the risk is gone. You just pay the penalty and take the money. But you don't have the tax benefits of money being in the self-directed IRA or in some kind of retirement fund. Another strategy that I used, again, this was out of the self-directed IRA. I said there was a deal that I was interested in. I had done some private lending essentially. So I had done some private lending first for a colleague of mine who's now one of my biggest partners. I do almost all my real estate business with her. And she needed some money, and I had some money that I wasn't ready to deploy yet into other things. And she's like, hey, would you be interested in, you know, a 90-day, when I get it stabilized, I'll go get regular funding. I'm like, sure, you know, that sounds good. So I was able to get a little bit of money while it was just sitting in the bank, because that's what happens when it's not sitting in the big Charles Schwab, Fidelity, those big accounts. It's basically sitting in a bank account until you deploy it. So it's just sitting there. It's not really earning anything. So I was interested in doing some of this private lending. And at the end of that, I had done a few of them. And then when she came back to me for her next one, she's like, hey, are you interested in doing that again? And I'm like, well, yeah, but I want to do it differently, I think. I don't want to just be, I'm like, I'm here to do real estate, not just a private money lend. Like that's kind of boring and a lot of underwriting. And then there is also risk associated with it. And I said, was there any way that, like, what if I bought the property outright with my self-directed IRA funds, and I was the bank to the project, and then I was also a 50% partner of cash flow? So we structured it so she put no money into the deal. I put all the money in, but I was making 15% cash on cash return after the interest was paid and my 50% cash flow, you know, the cash from the deal was coming back to me. And so that was a way to creatively do this, because at the time, like I said, I didn't have a good tax advisor who was really good at the real estate piece at first when I first got started. So I was doing everything that I could to avoid this, like the taxes, because there's taxes on leveraged money. And we'll get into a little bit more details on that down the road. So I structured this deal a little bit differently, and it worked out really great. We thought we were going to keep it long term because it wasn't a huge investment and it was paying really nicely. And I'm not anywhere close to retirement age. So like, oh, we'll leave this in here. And then about 18 months later, we looked at each other, both way more interested in bigger stuff. And we're like, do you want to sell? Yeah, I want to sell. And we sold it and we made money, and I got the money back, and I made great money during that time. It was like a phenomenal setup. So if you are an investor that is looking for creative ways to work with money partners, it is a phenomenal way to do it. I put like $200,000 into the entire deal, and it made really good money. And it was a great, and I was doing real estate because I was still an investor, not just the bank. And we will talk about the structure of like where you have to be careful on that, because JV partnerships, you have to be careful, but it was a JV partnership. It worked out. I discussed it with my custodian to make sure that that investor person, the gentleman who was helping me, the investment advisor, couldn't think of the name. He helped me to make sure that that was something that was within the realm of doable, that I could do this, and it absolutely was. So that was kind of another cool way of structuring things. So let's talk about that deal structure. So we have syndications and JV partnerships that are the most common in real estate. And I have been very hesitant to jump into the JV partnerships, which also slowed down my problem, because it slows you down, because syndications get a little scary because you don't have any control over it. So you're like handing your money over. So I had to overcome my own mindset issues. I was fear of breaking the rules, fear of having too many taxes and it not being a good deal, and at the time not having a good tax person to talk to. So I had to kind of go through my own process of everything from developing the right relationships, putting myself out there, meeting the right people, and asking a ton of questions. And so that all shifted my fear and allowed me to make moves. And then I started getting creative, like the deal I just shared with you, where I bought a duplex with my partner. I got really creative. So it's just about being creative, asking questions, and making the right relationships. So there's no one right way to do real estate. You want to align the investments with who you're working with, how you want to build wealth, and you want to take into account your risk tolerance. So let's talk about the taxes for a minute. The taxes, there's two types of taxes. There's the UBIT, UBIT, which is unrelated business income tax, and there's UDFI, unrelated debt financed income tax. UBIT, if you are in a checkbook IRA, you cannot avoid the UBIT taxes. So you want to understand those taxes from your accountant and understand what is going to happen and how that works. But it is applied to any business entity, which an LLC, you have to have an LLC for the checkbook. It has taxes associated with the fact that it's running a business. So talk with your tax advisor to understand what those taxes look like. The second one is UFDI, and this is unrelated debt financed income tax. And this is where you, I'll admit I made the mistake at first. I thought, oh, as long as it's a non-recourse loan, because you hear, is it a non-recourse loan? The non-recourse loans are better for self-directed IRA investments. And so the first JV partnership I went into, I thought, oh, I'm good. It's a non-recourse loan. It was a Freddie Fannie assumable loan. This is great. I won't have the UDFI taxes. Well, I was wrong. So here I'm sharing my lessons with you guys so you don't make the same mistakes. A non-recourse loan is the structure of a loan, but what the UDFI is actually saying is most of our deals are like 30-70, where we're leveraging 70% of the deal into the bank. And this is where the tax applies to that leveraged portion of the income, because in reality, we are not putting the $1.5 million into this deal. We are putting a portion of 30% of that, and now you're able to earn on the whole thing, but the government's like, that's not okay for you to make all this extra like you're growing your taxes, you're growing your portfolio, and you don't have to pay tax on that 70%, but that wasn't your money to have without taxes. So essentially, because a big portion, the 70% of your deal was used with leveraged money from the bank, that amount they're saying is taxable because it's not you didn't have the full amount, you only had 30%. So if I put $100,000 into that deal and it's a 70-30 split, 30% of it that is not leveraged, I don't pay taxes on that, but the 70,000 of the rest of it, I would be paying taxes on because we couldn't have gotten that deal without 70% of all of our investment being leveraged from the bank. So that's just because of the non-recourse loan doesn't mean that you're automatically exempt. Again, talk to your tax professional about that so that you can really understand what the tax implication is on those things. So that is the main information that I wanted to share with you guys. The from a mindset perspective, in general, in real estate, whether or not you are using self-directed IRA money and doing the retirement thing, or just investing your own money, pulling a HELOC, whatever it is, we have mindset issues that can come up. And so pay attention to when you are experiencing self-doubt or fear, or you're finding yourself in I'm hesitating, I'm not pulling the trigger, what's going on? A lot of the times that's our own internal language, that's our own fears. And by asking questions and by understanding what's going on, you can simply reframe a lot of that fear once you have more knowledge. You know, like the first time you go to do anything, it feels scary. I remember the first time I wired money, I was like, oh my God, this is so scary. Now it's not so scary. I know to double check my numbers. I got it, verifying everything's right. And then I hit send. Now it's exciting. Like I'm excited. Woo-hoo, I get to wire money to this new deal that I'm going into. But whenever we start anything new, there's always fear, self-doubt, self-limiting beliefs. There's things that are in there. And if you're finding yourself struggling with those and the questions aren't loosening in it, so that you can reframe and make motion, please reach out to me. I work with investors and I'm happy to help people to move through that process. I am launching a new program that's going to be a combination of one-on-one coaching with breakthrough sessions and really letting go of baggage that holds us back. And I'm also going to be putting it with group coaching, and it's going to be about a 4 to 5 month long program, depending on when people enroll. And it's going to be phenomenal for helping everyone get to the next level. So if you are finding yourself struggling in that area, whether it's self-directed IRA money or just getting started in general, please let me know. This program may be perfect for you. I will drop the link for if anybody wants to talk to me about any kind of coaching. I will put my my link in the in the chat here for you guys. So at this point, I don't have anything else specific to share with you guys, so we can open this up for questions if you have any. And it looks like there was one in the chat. So let me open the chat up, and feel free to just come off of mute and ask your questions. Karen, your question that's in the chat, are you only taxed on your percent or the 70%? It's just the 70. So if I put my $100,000 into a deal that was a 70-30 split, the 30 that I put, the 30,000 of that would not have any tax implications, because that is my money that didn't require to be leveraged at all as a collective to close that deal. And the 70%, that the 70,000 that I would be taxed on, is because there was 70% debt on the loan structure when we went into the deal. Does that make sense? Please feel free to come off mute if you have more questions around it. Okay, perfect. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I do. I have a question. What
Sure.
did you, when you were looking into a CPA, what were some of the things that you used to vet this CPA that would, fit for working with this type of account? And then second, is that CPA the same person that you use to pay less tax, to avoid tax?
Yeah, the CPA is the one who's going to help you with all of that. To be honest, I went with a referral with somebody in the academy to get a good person that so I didn't feel the need to do a full-on interview. And Melinda knows me, I'm like the biggest question asker known to man. So I usually have very long, lots of questions. I had fewer for them because they came from somebody that I knew had been doing real estate a long time. And if she was happy with them, I was going to be too. Still did a light interview, made sure there was good energy and goodness between us. But I would say the big question that you would want to ask is, how many of their clients are engaged in active real estate? And if they're familiar with, and how, like how many self-directed IRAs are they working with, like in their portfolio of clients? So if they're like, oh, I've got 1 or 2 or maybe 5 or 6, I might shop around a little bit more. But if they're like, oh yeah, like probably 30-40% of my clients have it, I'm doing hundreds of them a year, or even 50 or 60 a year, I would feel more comfortable because they know what's going on.
And you don't have a separate tax strategist?
I do not. I do not. We're definitely a complicated bunch in my family here, because we've got the multiple businesses, and then we added real estate on top of it. And then we added the self-directed IRA. So we're kind of layered. So we need somebody who's also very savvy in how to do business taxes. And I have found them to be able to provide us the strategy that we needed. I haven't felt like a lost puppy. The number one thing I would say when you start working with a new person, because we did that, is to, I sort of probably over trusted a little bit, and we had to go back and fix a couple things next time around, because I figured he understood it all from one conversation, and that's not how it works. Let's be realistic. Nothing sticks in one conversation. So I learned a little bit about how to bring on a new tax person, which is talk about it, they do it, they bring it back, and then just ask, pretty much almost have the same conversation before you got started. So now they have more understanding of your the landscape of your taxes and all of the stuff that's going on. And so I feel like you're able to get deeper the second time around, if that makes sense. So I'm more confident this year than I was the first year. This is our second year working with this gentleman. So, and I'm happy to provide you the name offline, Melinda.
Okay.
Karen, you asked what academy in. I'm in the multifamily investing academy. I'm sorry, the remote multifamily investing academy. So RFMIA. I can connect you in with them as well if you are interested in learning more about that. It's been a phenomenal academy. I've been able to move so much faster. It's incredibly thorough. They provide great information from not just acquiring the property, which is a lot of programs focus on, but the management of. And when I'm looking at a syndicator, the number one thing I care about is how they've managed previous projects. And I like to watch them before I invest with them, because when you put your self-directed IRA in a syndication position, they have full control over your money. So you want to make sure that you know, like, and trust them, and they're not going to just fall off the face of the earth. Because you can't just, as a JV partner, you can be like, hey, we need a meeting. I'm not happy with the way this is going. And they have to. That's the way the operating agreement's written. But when you are in a syndication, you get to hear what they have. You can ask some questions, but you can't necessarily change decisions or force, by bringing other partners together to decide, I think we want to do this differently. Look, the three of us want to, and the two of you don't. So let's make a change. You don't have any of that in a syndication. So you want to be very careful and make sure you really know the people. And that's what's taken me time to develop those relationships. But the academy has helped me to move a lot faster, because I'm in many syndications through that program. And I know they're getting coached. I know that they're engaged. They've become friends of mine. And then I've been able to meet other people that I have been very impressed with, that I was willing to do. I'll call it testaments. Like, okay, here's 50,000. Let's see how you perform. And if you do a good job, then maybe next time I'll invest again. But I consider those my riskiest investments, are people that I don't know super personally, that I don't have a long history with, and a very small percentage of my money will go into those kinds of deals, because you sign your money away. So you definitely want to make sure that you're comfortable with that. But I do not believe I would have hit 523 doors in less than 3 years if it wasn't for the academy that has helped me to really grow and scale. And another part of their program is mindset. I'm a mindset coach for their program as well. And the mindset piece is key to success in anything. Does anybody have any more questions?
I do. I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have a solo 401k, and do you know if the 401k has the checkbook like capabilities, would that 401k still be hit with like taxes?
You would have, so my experience, the reason I'm able to share this and I'm super comfortable is that it's like the lessons I've learned as I've gone along the way. And I was very interested in a solo 401k and found out, because my husband and I have a corporation, we are not eligible. We have employees, and the way we're structured, I was not eligible for a solo 401k. It is my understanding that the solo 401k has better tax advantages than the self-directed IRA. So thank you for mentioning that. I didn't think about it because it's really far out my radar, because it was something that early on I was researching and it like didn't work for me and I was bummed. So talk to I believe there are taxes, but less of them. And I believe you can have a checkbook IRA with them as well. But please talk to somebody, because I don't know the details. I've never dove into it personally. Sunny, your question around, can you use self-directed IRA funds in a JV deal? You can. But you cannot, some of the big rules, and you really want to understand the rules so that you don't get yourself into trouble. And the big thing on the JV is that you cannot be personally getting any personal benefit, or your child or your parent directly in your like your genealogy, your sisters and your aunts and uncles, they're allowed to get some benefits of what you're doing, but your children, grandchildren, and parent, the direct line cannot. So things like, just personally, the way I structure it is that any deal that I'm managing and that I am actually getting a carve out for, I do not invest my self-directed IRA money into those deals at all. My understanding, you hear differencing of opinions out there. Supposedly it can be, I just not even going there. So that's outside my risk tolerance because there's differences of opinions. So I'm making sure that I keep a hard line. So I do not invest my money into deals that I'm managing because I'm getting a cut from it. So I interpret that as I can't do that without a tax implication. So I invest in other people's deals, and I am in a couple JV partnerships. And one of them I'm considering getting, actually both of them I'm considering getting out of because I need to, now is the time for me to have the one I got into because I thought, oh, it's a non-recourse loan, I'm fine, I don't have these same tax implications. That's where I made the mistake. There are still tax implications because it's leveraged money. So that's where I always go take my JV partnership deal that I'm interested in and I show it to both the investment advisor. They're not going to give you taxes though. They're just going to tell you if it's okay or not. And then you take it to your tax person and you ask them to tell you what are the tax implications on this. So you just cannot be managing or involved with the management at all. So going back to the example where I was both the bank and the investor on the duplex with my partner, I was not managing it. She was the managing partner. I was the money partner. So it was a JV partnership. And she did all of the management and she just reported things to me. And of course, I asked a question here and there, but I wasn't actively managing. I wasn't on calls with the broker or the lender or I did nothing. I was the lender, but I wasn't having any operational conversations, more like quarterly updates. This is what's going on. This is what we need to do. Here's the money, that I'm sending you, and reviewing the financials. So I was not a strategic partner. So you want to make sure that you're, and this is where you have to be careful because in a JV partnership, you have to have some kind of role. So you want to make sure your role is aligned in a way that, so first you're not getting paid. And the second is that you're not like this big strategic, super involved in the deal. You're just reviewing, you're a second set of eyes. You're a, you just review the financials and you want to make sure that your role is enough that it meets the rules of that I am a JV partner and I have a role, but you're not actively investing in it so that you're not actively managing it so that it would be considered a conflict. So when you set up your LLC with your attorney, at least my attorney provided me a nice list. It's a 1 page of like 15 rules. Don't violate these rules. And the custodian is very aware. So the investor advisor that's at your custodian, they are very aware and they are a really key part of your team on this. They're aware of the rules and they're there to keep you out of trouble. So definitely leverage them. Are there any other questions?
Good morning, Liz. I have a question just to clarify what you just mentioned. So like I have an opportunity to be a JV partner in a deal, and this is like totally new to me, but I would be putting in some of my self-directed money. So just to clarify, like I would not be able to take part as being an asset manager. I would have to do like some type of sideline, because it would be like I would be considered a partner, right?
Yes.
I don't want to be like in violation of.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to be operating the deal. So if you and your partner are, you find the deal and you're trying to fund it and you're going to be the one that's managing the day-to-day operation, I personally would not we'll talk to your advisor.
Mhm.
And I personally would not do that because to me, that's a violation of the rules. I use my HELOC money and the money that I earn from real estate to put into the deals that I find. But if you have somebody in the academy that you are interested in investing as a JV partner into their deal, I would still talk to the custodian and find out what role would it be okay for me to be involved in. Like if I looked into insurance, is that too much? They might say you can't do that. So can I be a note taker at the quarterly update meetings? And maybe you're just the note taker. So you
Okay.
just want to find the right level of role that doesn't put you in trouble with being too active. You have to be active enough to meet the JV rules, but you can't be too active. And they might say, as long as you're not getting paid, it doesn't matter what you do. It might be money. So it's been a long time since I've had these conversations because I've stopped investing in JV partnerships, mostly because I didn't have a good tax advisor to help me understand what are the take-home cash-on-cash returns going to be. Because I want good returns. And sometimes in these syndications, I'm getting really great returns. And even though I don't have the ability to make decisions, I trust the people that are making the decisions and I'm making better money than if I go into the JV partnership. There's the UBIT and the UDFI taxes. Well, what am I going to take home that it may not be worth it?
Right.
So
I-
that's where having a good tax guy is really important.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking to my custodian today, and because it's an awesome opportunity for me to get hands-on learning and training.
Mhm.
But again, I got to do my due diligence.
Yeah, I would just ask them, like, if I'm just kind of like helping out, like from just a trying to learn perspective, and I'm not actually doing anything and I'm not getting a carve out, would that be a problem? Would that be considered a violation? Like if I'm, because the stuff that I'm mostly hearing is like, you can't be the agent selling the property. You can't be the construction people coming in to do the rehab because you're just paying yourself. You can't live in it.
Okay.
Your kids can't live in it. So there's not a ton of conversation around what's my role as a JV partner. Like I said, I stopped investing. I did a couple deals, and because I didn't have a good tax person, I was very hesitant. Now that I have a good tax person, I'm shifting over to starting to entertain these conversations. But I'm just not there yet. So, and because I was forced to be creative, I have a lot of really cool things going on right now. I have a lot of really neat projects that I'm being presented. I've got some really good relationships for syndications, and the syndications are structured they're structured for this kind of investment. So it makes it very risk adverse.
Yeah, because I like for me, it's like because I'm so new, I don't want to be like join the team and be like so new, and my limitations is so minimal that I feel like I'm not contributing my part. So that's
Right.
an internal thing. But yeah, all right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Liz, I just have a quick question. Being self-employed, I have a SEP IRA, not your traditional like 401k. Do you know if the same rules apply, or that's a question I could pose to the the IRA people?
My understanding, definitely go verify, anything that I'm saying. Like definitely you want to talk to your professionals, but the way I understand it is that it needs to be in a special kind of IRA. It has to be in a self-directed IRA, but talk to the custodian that you're with. Maybe it already has that opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Because where I came from the place of like the big companies. I had accounts with Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, and Pershing. And so I had to move a T. Rowe Price. I had to move all of this money into a place because I knew they didn't have it. So definitely talk to your current custodian and be like, can you support me doing self-directed IRA stuff? And then if they do, interview them, talk with them, make sure they have some kind of investment advisor for you. And then you get to make the decision, do I want to just send everything to them, to their investment advisor, and work through and have them sign it? Or do I want to move it to a checkbook IRA? And you want to make sure that they're okay with that checkbook IRA if that's the strategy that you want to go.
Okay.
So yeah,
Thanks.
some of these smaller companies, like I was really surprised when I heard some of the credit unions have some of these services. I didn't realize that, but I didn't look into the credit unions. I wasn't really, so again, I come from the place of the experience I was in, which was very traditional banking institutions that had my money and they did none of it to getting it out and figuring out that path. So definitely call and ask them and find out, do you guys allow me to invest in real estate? What does that look like? My guess is a lot of the structure and the tax implications would be the same. It's just whether or not your custodian allows that. And I do know that like a solo 401k has different and better tax structure for this stuff,
Okay.
which is
Thanks.
something to consider. If you are self-employed and you don't have employees, can you move your money to a solo 401k? And maybe they have a solo 401k that would, like just definitely ask.
Yeah.
it's worth the conversations. It's worth the conversations for sure. Are there any other questions? For those of you who were not able to attend, there will be a replay, so that will come out by email to everybody. I don't know exactly how long that takes for me to, this has been my first live webinar. So I don't know exactly how long it takes to get it all rendered and posted somewhere where you can get to it. So it may take me a day or two, especially it's Friday. So, but it'll definitely be available by Monday if you know anybody that was trying to attend and wasn't able to join. Are there any other questions? And Karen, are we connected through Facebook? Because if so, we can chat through Facebook as well. Okay, perfect. If there's no more questions, I will let you guys have your weekend. It's coming up here. So if there's no other questions, I'll give you guys the rest of your day back, and I appreciate everybody's time. And I hope this was valuable to you.
Thanks, Liz.
You're very
Thank you,
welcome.
Liz.
All right.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too. I have no idea if
Does it do it automatically?
I believe because I think you're at the point where you're the one who ends the meeting because you're the
Okay.
host. I
Okay.
believe it will just finish rendering to the cloud because that's where I told it to go. And I don't think we have to worry about anything. I think it's all good. And hi,
Awesome.
Karen, you're a note taker still here. You can hear us talk about the administration of getting all of this tidied up.
All right, Liz.
Okay,
I will
thank you so
see you
much. I
later.
really appreciate your help, Maria.
No problem. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, you too.